The Mets win 6-4. They're now 5-1. So there you go, John.
just the way you planned it out.
Exactly. Folks, welcome aboard here to the Sports Talk Nation here on YouTube. Michael Cohen here with you. We are a week now into the 2019 Major League Baseball season, and well, here in New York, it's the tale of two different teams right now. You have the Yankees, who are the walking wounded. Now 11 players, after Troy Tulowitzki went down with an injury earlier today, is now potentially another player possibly on the DL. And they are 2-4. Meanwhile, the New York Metropolitans are 5-1. Joining me today to talk about what's going on here in New York, especially with the Mets, is John Pielli from the Pass Ball Show. We've been very lucky to have him on a number of times in the past, and he joins us today. Now, John, as I welcome you in, we were in this spot a year ago. Remember, the Mets were 11-1, and everything just kind of fell apart after that. Here we go again, and the Mets are now 6 outs away. They have a 6-0 lead against Miami, 6 outs away from starting the season at 5-1. Can they find a way to sustain this? Because this is just a wonderful start to the season.
Well, I think I remember talking about this last year. Yeah. The Mets were off to the 11-1 start, the 12-2 start. And, I didn't want to throw cold water on it. It was, listen, you're a fan of a certain sports team, and when they're doing well, you want to ride it as long as you can. But, the way they were winning a lot of the games, there were one-run games, kind of getting that last or that quick break that ends up happening. And I just didn't see it as being so tremendously sustainable. I wanted it to be, but it just didn't seem like that from an objective point of view. I think the Mets have a lot of things going right for them. Their bullpen is certainly deeper than it was at this time last year. I think offensively, they that doesn't look like they're lucking out. They have a series of hitters, about 4 or 5 hitters, hitting over 300. So you have approach where they seem to be going the other way. It looks like they have a plan at the plate. And obviously you have the one thing that as long as these guys stay healthy, that's going to work out for them all season is their starting pitching. So I think this is a much better team than we saw. You jump in the DeLorean and go 365 days ago. This is a better baseball team. So yeah. I have a little more belief in the Mets start right now than I did last year.
Yeah, and that team last year had a lot of older players, guys like Adrian Gonzalez, Todd Frazier, who, yes, is still on the team but is on the injured list, but a lot of older guys. This is now a team that they have a lot of young players, and I think the difference between not just this Mets team this year and last year, but Mets teams in the last 5 or 6 years, is whenever we saw a guy like a Brandon Nimmo or a Ahmed Rosario, or even a Michael Conforto, weren't always considered the guys, weren't always considered faces of the team. They usually considered, okay, here's our minor league prospect, he's just going to fill in until so-and-so 35-year-old veteran gets off the disabled list. That's not the case anymore. These guys are entrenched as the faces of this team, and it's good to see that you have this kind of youth in a baseball team. It's a nice mix of some veteran guys and youth, and that's what we have right now with the Mets this year.
Yeah, you can make a case, Mike, that the younger players may, in some cases, be outperforming some of the older players. And it's funny because when you look at a team, or maybe the team that you were envisioning when this season started, you think of Robinson Canó, 35 years old. Think of Jed Lowry, who was obviously on the second half of 30. Frazier, who you just mentioned. So, Wilson Ramos is a little over 30. When you think of the veteran players on this team, you think of an older team. But when it comes down to it, the roster has kind of been saturated now with a lot of younger players, but not just younger players that it happens to be their time up from AAA. They're next on the depth chart, but impactful players. You look at what Alonso's doing right now. McNeil's going out there getting a couple hits every day he plays. And it seems like it is kind of a combination of the youth and the veterans, especially, on the offensive side of the ball. And obviously, pitchers they got, you look at Edwin Diaz, he's only 24, 25. So, overall, when Brody Van Wagenen said, hey, they're going to go for it, I think it was natural to have a reaction where you're thinking, oh, maybe they're going to go with an older group of players to try to win right now. But it looks like that there's enough of a mesh between younger and older players that kind of makes you feel excited, not just through the rest of the 2019 season, but and beyond.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, a couple of these big names that we're talking about, Pete Alonso, what a start this guy's had to the year. He was 2 for 4 in today's game. Guys hitting over 409, had a big home run the other day that I think just landed in Port St. Lucie. That's how hard and far he hit that one down South Beach. This guy, what I really like about this guy and Pete Alonso is he doesn't seem to be caught up in the moment. You have a lot of young players that come up, and sometimes they get caught up in it. Maybe they have a tendency to struggle very early in their major league career, especially at the start of their major league career. We haven't seen that yet. Alonso hasn't hit that wall. There's a confidence about him that he carries that kind of exudes through the clubhouse. The veteran players really have taken to him. He is really just an amazing piece to the puzzle here.
One thing that impressed me the most about Pete Alonso is when he didn't get the call up at the end of last year.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was more people speaking on his behalf as opposed to him expressing, his frustration or him putting the Mets in a tough situation. It seems like he took the high road when it came to that, and he came into spring training and did nothing but rake, made it very difficult for the Mets, even if they wanted to manipulate his service time, to be able to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, once the Mets made the decision to bring him up, all he's done is hit. A couple more hits today. I mean, he looks like the real deal. And it's funny, we always talk about those extra couple weeks and how much that means or doesn't mean for a team to get that extra year of team control. And my answer to that has always been easy. Well, why don't you bring them up in good faith and say, listen, we just did something for you. You do something for us and sign an extension to cover you through that 6th year.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I bet you the amount of players that would say yes to that, knowing that they're going to be on the opening day roster, you'd probably eliminate a problem, which I think has been kind of created by the media a little bit,
mm-hmm.
and kind of blown out a little bit into proportion to be a little more than what it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. And, at the end of it, the kid just wants to be up here and wants an opportunity to play every single day. And the Mets have granted him that opportunity. And what is equally important to the chemistry of this club is you have a guy like Dominic Smith, who a year ago at this time was expected to be the future at first base of this position, at least the immediate future at first base for the Mets. And he is now in a backup role, and he has really taken to that role. You would think that in a situation like this, you would have maybe a rivalry between two players who want to play every day, and Alonso and Smith. Hasn't been the case. These two guys have had a lot of good chemistry together. You would see them, celebrating each other's success, and I think that in itself is a big part of this team's success so far early on.
Yeah, and I think if you look at what would be probably a symbol of the new Mets, would be this kind of camaraderie that you see. Now, unfortunately, it's a lot easier to see how everybody's together and everybody's pulling for each other when things are going well, right?
Exactly.
If things are going, in the most ideal type of situation and all you're doing is winning, then yeah, you know what? Everything looks like it's roses. So it'd be interesting to see, hey, if the Mets drop a couple games in a row, if they're able to stay as tight as they seem to be. But, you're getting the impression, at least off the bat, that everybody is pulling for each other. Dominic Smith probably happy to be on a major league roster. I'm sure ideally he'd like to be playing every day,
mm-hmm.
but is working right there with Pete Alonso. Helping the Mets out whenever he can. And Pete Alonso, the other day when he hit that home run. Hey, listen, you got on base, you got this thing started.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you want that ultimate team when things are clicking on all cylinders to work out. Like I said, it looks good now because the Mets are winning. You just hope it stays that way if they drop a couple games in a row or have a bad stretch.
Yeah, and, they're going to face a tough stretch here very soon. They're going to have Philadelphia on the schedule in a couple weeks. They got the Cardinals and the Brewers later on this month. So it's going to get harder very quickly here. Even Washington beginning tomorrow when they get their home opener at Citi Field. So the challenge is just going to get a lot tougher for the Mets. As far as the pitching is concerned, I look at this, I still feel the same way about the starting staff that I did when we were in spring training. I feel great about deGrom. I feel good about Syndergaard. I have concerns about the back end. First on deGrom, I'm very happy the Mets got this deal done. Granted, it was practically 11th hour when they got the long-term deal done with deGrom, but can you imagine if they didn't have a deal done in place, and we have deGrom doing what he has done tonight, 14 Ks, a solo home run, 7 shutout innings, no earned runs allowed in 2 starts now at the beginning of the year. Can you imagine the drumbeat of negativity from the fan base and the media if they didn't have a contract? I'm so happy they got this deal done, and now we can just move on and focus on what he can do for this team moving forward.
Well, I think one thing that we always point to as Mets fans, same old Mets.
Absolutely.
When it comes to this. And I got to be honest, I try the best I can to be objective, and, fairly often I'll get caught up in the same thing. I did feel confident that the Mets and Jacob deGrom were going to be able to get some sort of agreement. Now, I didn't know, maybe perhaps, Jacob and Brody, when they were together, when Brody was representing them, maybe had some ridiculous ideas as far as the type of long-term deal that they were looking for, and Brody's on the other side, and all of a sudden there's no way that he's willing to do that or could get the approval to do that from the Wilpons. That would have been the only thing that would get in my way to believe that they weren't going to come to an agreement, when it comes down to this. And I think it's more of a baseball thing as we're watching before our eyes. Their players and agents are fearing free agency. They're looking at free agency as almost a burden now because teams have kind of drawn their line in the sand, making a decision that they're not going to be aggressive in pursuing even the best of best free agents. Manny Machado maybe had 2 or 3 teams interested in him. Bryce Harper, maybe 2 teams tops. So, and these are the best of the best players in Major League Baseball. So, others are looking at the possibility of free agency, and they probably want to do everything they can to avoid it. You've seen it since November, starting with the Nolan Arenado contract with the Rockies, that, teams are just, able to lock up their own players. So, yes, if it got to opening day and there was no deal, I'd start to get pessimistic. But I really felt that the Mets and Jacob deGrom were going to come together on some sort of an agreement. Probably didn't expect it to go as long as it did, as it was just about a day before opening day.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I had a sense that it was not going to happen. I was thinking it was not going to happen, and we were going to have this dramatic situation play out throughout the year about, are they going to pay him? Are they not going to pay him? Are they going to trade him? What are they going to do? So this was a major concern, at least on my end. But I look at the rest of this rotation, John, and yes, Syndergaard I feel good about, deGrom I feel good about, but I still worry about Zach Wheeler. I still worry about Steven Matz. I know both of them had kind of uneven performances their first time out this year. And, of course, even though Jason Vargas is the 5th starter, and you take the 5th starter whenever you need him, I feel that this team, long-term, has to address the starting rotation and find a way. At some point this year, they're going to have to go out there and get somebody else in here to help them out, because I just don't have confidence in these 3 guys to go out there and perform at a high level. I know Wheeler was great at the end of last year, but again, that was just a very small sample size. To me, he's like he's like the 21st century version of Steve Traxel. Throws a million pitches, walks guys, still finds ways to get outs. So that's how I feel about the rest of this rotation right now.
Well, listen, I have a little belief in Wheeler just because sometimes, you look at a guy like Patrick Corbin, all of a sudden things come together and they kind of become the pitcher you thought they were going to be years ago. And I see a lot of correlation between the two. The link that they went through Tommy John surgery and, not necessarily getting back on track right away. But when it comes down to Matz, he's always been kind of a head case. You wonder what happens with him if something doesn't go right, he doesn't get a call, he hits a batter or has a bad play behind him. Sometimes it impacts the way that he pitches. So I'd be very concerned about him. Jason Vargas, listen, he's just basically a run-in-the-mill 5th starter. So absolutely, I'd be out there trying to reach out to Dallas Keuchel, asking him, hey, you want to work? I mean, let's come up with some sort of agreement. The season started. I don't know if you know yet. It'd be probably a good idea if you were pitching in a major league rotation and at least have some sort of negotiations with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Dallas Keuchel, and there's been talk that the Mets have inquired with Keuchel, that they have been in touch with him. Some say they're just doing their due diligence. whatever it may be. The fact is, this guy in Keuchel has been out there. He's been a solid pitcher for a number of years now. He's still fairly young. He's only 31 years old. I would say if you have an opportunity to bring him in on a reasonable contract, 1-2 year deal, and he's willing to do it just so he can get back into the game, get back into a rotation, as you just mentioned, I would do it. I mean, you would have an opportunity. If you do that, you add Dallas Keuchel into a rotation with Noah Syndergaard and Jacob deGrom, you automatically jump up in this division, certainly past Atlanta and Washington, and right up there in the conversation with Philadelphia to win this thing.
Yeah, and think about it. You know, you break down the roster 1 through 25. I mean, from a talent standpoint, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And you were kind of hoping, whatever it was, when Brody Van Wagenen is saying, "Hey, we're going to, have the best team. We're going to put the best roster together." You hope and wished and kind of aspired that they had maybe one more big move in them, and they kind of came short when it came down to it. But right now, if you look at them, I think the Phillies right now, at least on paper, seem like they're a little bit better. Their offense is a little stronger. Perhaps the Mets, rotation and bullpen is a little bit deeper than them. But if the Mets can make that one counter move, a guy like a Dallas Keuchel, or perhaps a trade for another starter just to lengthen their rotation out a little bit, it would be kind of that punch counter punch type of thing. And I'd look at the Mets a little bit more confidently.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, bullpen has been interesting so far this year. Now, we were talking about this off the air, folks, and John brought up the stat that the Mets have, at least to start the season anyway, 1 week in, one of the lowest bullpen ERAs so far. This for a unit that had the highest bullpen ERA in Mets history last year, 4.97. That being said, I'm still worried about it because of what I've seen. I've seen guys get on base. I've seen a lot of situations where they're giving up a lot of hits. Seth Lugo, who had a great year last year, has kind of hit a wall here to start the year. Jeurys Familia has gotten into some trouble. We saw Edwin Diaz load the bases before striking out the side the other day in Miami. I have concerns about the bullpen. Look, we're always going to have concerns about this bullpen. We could be sitting here in May, June, July, and August, and we'll have a concern about the bullpen at some point. But they've kind of been able to basically rob the bank to start things off here in the season.
Well, listen, there's some things that I like in regards to what I've seen, but you bring up some good points. I mean, it's not like any of these shutdown innings have been 1, 2, 3. It's kind of like that old Francisco Rodríguez, John Franco, type of ninth inning. They'd end up getting a save, but you wouldn't have a strand of hair left in your head because you would have pulled it out because of all the base runners, the 3-2 counts, and everything. So it's not like they've made it look really easy. It's not like you've seen a group of relievers that are 100% backing up what you've seen in a baseball card. I mean, obviously the Sunday, the game last night on Tuesday, just seemed like it was a game that the Mets in the past would have lost. And maybe it helped that they were facing the Marlins, a team that in some cases has gotten themselves out. But you're also looking at Familia not being available, Diaz not being available, Lugo being sick, having to push Justin Wilson like you did in that spot, and somehow they ended up getting the job done. Listen, I mean, obviously the construction of it, Diaz with Familia and Wilson, you certainly like it better than what you saw last year when it was Familia closing for A.J. Ramos and Anthony Swarzak.
Yeah.
So you just hope that it keeps up. I think they've upgraded their bullpen. It's better than it was last year. And, you just hope they get at least similar results than what you've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens as we move along. I mean, I am concerned about Mickey Callaway's management of the bullpen, but that's another conversation in and of itself. I just don't like the way he leaves guys in, sometimes 2 innings at a time, like he did with Justin Wilson. I would have taken him out after that 1 inning of work, but it's going to be something.
The only thing I'm going to say to that, Mike, is
sure.
I don't know who else they had.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, you find out that Familia wasn't available, Diaz wasn't available. I mean, you want to try a Luis Avalon or a Tim Peterson in that spot. If you remember, Peterson had pitched an inning and 2/3 the day before, so it was kind of a rough spot. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on that. However, I do agree with you. There are certain moments that do kind of shake my head. and wonder exactly what he is thinking. This is a guy that was known, obviously, went into prominence as a pitching coach with the Indians. You figured that would be one area of the game that he would know inside and out. And at least, going back to the beginning of last year, it doesn't seem like it's one of his best fortes behind the bench.
Absolutely. Let's jump to this controversy right now that's been going on between Ron Darling and Lenny Dykstra. Man, this is just bizarre. Of course, Ron Darling coming out with a book called 108 Stitches, and in the book he basically takes everybody to task. He took Bob Murphy to task, called him a drunk. He went after Gary Carter over a All-Star ballot, and then of course he went after Frank Thomas, the former White Sox, over a coat that he wore, and then of course the big story with Dykstra, where he said he was throwing racial epithets at Oil Can Boyd during the World Series in '86. And then we had Lenny Dykstra respond saying that he was going to punch his lights out and sue him. So, I mean, this has just gotten bizarre. What do you make of this insanity?
Well, I look at it and I just don't understand. I mean, I don't understand it from Ron Darling's perspective. He's really gaining out of this? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's an extreme intellectual, obviously a Yale graduate. Guy that has had a very good playing career. He's a successful broadcaster. Is it about the money? Probably not. He's probably well enough off. To go out of his way to say the things that he said, I just thought was a little bit questionable. Now, I started out with the Dykstra thing, and I kind of thought about it the other day, and I'm like, hey, if there's a player on that '86 team that you could probably take some shots at, and everybody's probably, or the majority of the people are going to probably take your side over, it would probably be Dykstra. And, would it surprise me if Dykstra said the things that he said, to Oil Can Boyd, or shouted him out before the beginning of Game 3 when he ended up hitting that home run in the World Series? No, of course not. But, when it goes down and you start digging deeper into some of the things that he ends up, bringing up in his book, he comes off as bitter. The Bob Murphy thing kind of, you're a broadcaster, Mike. You're a talk show host, just like I am. We've done our research. We know the history of sports broadcasting. Mm-hmm. What was the common thing? The common thread amongst broadcasters was they all like to drink. Some of the best, the legends of sports broadcasting, were known to be, probably, people that, we would look at a lot differently today because of the amount that they drank. Mm-hmm. Before games, after games, during games. Mm-hmm. So, it just kind of comes off as just a little bit, just trying to throw something, Bob Murphy's way, like it's revealing, but it's probably not if you really understand the industry at that time. Yeah. Everybody knows Gary Carter was probably the most shameless self-promoter that ever existed in the game of baseball. He loved seeing his smile more than anybody ever did. And that was just a part of what Gary Carter was about. So I didn't think that was very revealing. Some of the other shots, the shots they took against Kevin Elster, being the ladies' man. Yeah. That kind of came out as just like funny. Kevin Elster probably laughed at that. Maybe. Ron Hodge, saying that, hey, he kind of bullied him a little bit or was not real nice. I mean, do we understand the game of baseball and the way that it's been over the last several years? Yes. They've gotten away from the hazing and stuff that existed with the rookies, but rookies were not treated good for years upon years. So once again, he's not reporting something that's brand new that nobody has ever heard that happened before. To me, he just comes off as very bitter, and I could see how people in the industry, people in baseball, and I'm sure a lot of fans will probably lose some respect for him based off of some of the pot shots that he's putting out there in his book. Yeah, and look, I'm not going to, if the accusations of, let's just say, Dykstra, for example, are true, would I be surprised? Of course not. But at the same time, when you think about the way baseball players were back then, and even just the way they are up until this recent generation, if you will, the old school mentality. And look, guys like to talk trash. There are players on teams who just like to cause trouble. They are the intimidators on the ball club. Everybody has that one jerk or goon on the club. Not saying there's right or wrong, but it's just a fact.
That being said, I just wonder now, I believe this is now Darling's third book that he has now written, and I wondered, the first thing I thought of was, why now does he have to bring this up? Does he have to put this in the book now? I mean, couldn't he have done this during his first book, his second book? If this was something that, or these were anecdotes that he felt he had to reveal, why did he wait for a third book? Did he have to consult? I don't know. You don't know. Did he have to consult an attorney? Did he have to go through some kind of legal procedure before he released it? But I just wonder why the timing had to be right now.
Yeah, I did some research. I found, and actually, I'll give credit to Sal Licata because he actually tweeted out that there was some reference in his last book to Dykstra in that situation. It wasn't as specific as the certain things that he claimed that he said. But he did make references to Dykstra in his last book as being just a person that was capable of saying anything at any time, without any regard for the impact on how that would be towards anybody that was on the other side of it. The one thing that I question, and you look at a lot of different things, and it's not just the Dykstra thing, is was there a code that was broken between, the baseball players that they hold amongst themselves? Because you heard guys like Darryl Strawberry, Doc Gooden, and Kevin Mitchell all asked about, this particular incident, and they said that, they didn't see anything. They didn't hear anything. There was nothing there that happened. And you wonder if any of them know anything or did see anything, whether they're more along the lines to say, hey, this is the player's code. What happens within the confines of the players and what happens within the clubhouse and a locker room and within the team stays within the team.
A very precarious situation that Darling put himself in. We're not saying that he's right or wrong in the situation, but it's just very odd that this all had to happen right now in this circumstance. Speaking of the Mets, we were talking about their bullpen. Right now, the Marlins have rallied for 4 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning against Robert Gesellman. And Mickey Callaway now is going to finally take him out after 18 pitches. And he is going to bring in Edwin Diaz to try to finish this game. This, again, we talked about it already. This Met bullpen, you want to talk about how good the ERA has been so far. They have been playing with fire since the start of the season, and it really is a concern right now.
Yeah, so it's something you got to think about in regards to depth now. I stand by my statement that the Mets did a good job addressing their bullpen, but maybe it may behoove them to have an interest in making an addition. You want to have that one more reliever that you are 100% confident in. This way you could give a Familia or a Diaz or Justin Wilson a day off, in back-to-back game situations. Gesellman kind of scares me because I think he fell off towards the end of last season. A lot of it had to do with his workload. Seth Lugo, I still have faith in. He brings a different optic to that bullpen. But, at the same time, they're going to have to trust these guys to get big outs in big spots. And, if you can't protect a 6-0 lead, it does a lot when you start to think about being able to trust a pitcher at any point. Why hold a pitcher on your roster in your bullpen at any point if you can't put them in any sort of situation when you got the lead?
Yeah, hey, look, there's another guy out there, too, Craig Kimbrell. I'm just saying, just throwing that out there, folks. Craig Kimbrell's out there, too, if the Mets wanted to bring him in. But, man, it's a little bit concerning. I think they'll win this game with Diaz coming in. I would expect they will win this game and finish at 5-1, but be at 5-1. But, yeah, I know it's early. I don't want to jump on the gun too soon here, but, they got to do something to shake up this pen just a little bit. Maybe they got to do something. He's giving guys days off, so I can't complain on that in that regard. I really can't.
And then the other thing you got to mention too, Mike, is the fact that how much of this is Mickey Callaway's decision, and how much are these decisions being made for him?
That's a good point.
The Mets, improve their analytics staff. There's a lot, in that so-called eye from the sky that is basically telling Mickey Callaway what to do. These off days that are set up with whether it's an Alonso or Jeff McNeil are set up, a week in advance, which gives me the impression that it's not Mickey Callaway that's making a decision. So, he's pretty much, he's the scapegoat. He's the guy that's going to be blamed for all this when it comes to assembling and what pitchers you go to and what people are in the lineup, but how much of it is the Mets organizational philosophy and their decisions that are being made for Mickey Callaway. Mickey Callaway's not going to go to the media and say, no, I wasn't given the right to make this decision. Nobody's going to do that. You want to keep your job, you're going to shut up. So, if that's even the case, Mickey Callaway's not going to say anything. So, before we kind of get on the manager, which I think is a thing that we always do here in the city of New York, in this area, you have to understand the way the game has changed and the fact that the managers are not given as much pull or as much control over not just the construction of their roster, but the everyday use of their roster like they were even 10 years ago.
Yeah. Anyway, Diaz now, it's a 2-1 count on Granderson. They're showing the graphic here. He threw 29 pitches to Diaz on Monday. That's swing and a miss. It's now 2-2. 29 pitches on Monday. Threw 1 pitch on Sunday and 14 on Saturday. So he's had his work. But right now, all he needs is a 1 strike here. He's got the deuces wild. He's got the 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. He's got the runner on first. Here we go, 2-2. Swinging a line drive to left, and that's going to be caught by Broxton, and the ball game is over. Anyway, Mets win 6-4. They're now 5-1. So there you go, John.
Just the way you planned it out.
Exactly. It was all part of my plan. Anyway, John, I really want to thank you, man, for coming aboard. As always, we will reconvene in a few weeks when we start to get some more games under the belt and see where this thing's going.
Well, it's always fun coming on with you, talking baseball, and I definitely look forward to doing it again soon.
All right, man. Take care.
Thanks, man.
All right, folks, that is John Pielli, the Passball Show, and again, I want to thank him for joining us tonight. So we were kind of talking about the Mets here in the early going of the season, 1 week in, as they are now 5-1 on the year. Yankees are 2-4 to start the year, so very early here in the city of New York with the baseball season. And, we'll just keep it going. So we'll be doing a lot of these videos on a regular basis where we're kind of going over what's going on, the latest with the teams in baseball. So you can catch that here on the Sports Talk Nation channel. And also remember to like and subscribe right here on YouTube so you can keep track of all the latest videos that we have coming. And also remember to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/OpenMicProgram, and at OpenMicNJ on Twitter. And also follow John on Twitter at John_PLE. So, folks, take care, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. We will talk to you next time.